Hello, it is Heather and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk about, as of right now, as of how I'm in my feels in this moment, my top 10 books of all time. Now, some of these might be a part of a series that I really enjoyed the series, but these are my favorite parts of the series, so we'll get to that. But let's start. I've got a whole pile of books in front of me. Let's start with the first one on the top, by Delia Owens. My sister Colleen got me to read this book, and she asked me for a really long time, and I was like, fine, I'll read the damn book. I'm really glad I did. This is my copy. It's really, really special. It's really beautiful. It's got these like lovely end papers, and it's just, I've got my little embossing stamp in here because this bitch is mine. The things I really liked about this book, one, it's kind of like a murder mystery, but it's also a coming of age book. I loved how the setting was its own character. How the marsh that Kaya, the main character, lives in is so vividly described. Like, I felt like I was there. And I'm the type of reader who's very immersed. So like when I'm reading, I don't even see words. I just see pictures and I just feel myself there. And I felt like this book did such a good job in putting you in a place and making you feel a certain way. And like I grew up in the country, maybe not the marsh like Kaya, but I grew up out here playing in the dirt like a little dirty bush kid, and it was so much fun. And so I could relate to some of the ways that Kaya grew up. Maybe not all of them. She grew up in poverty and she didn't have much, and like we didn't have much either, but it wasn't like the way it was described in the book. So I just felt a lot in this book. I love the little twist at the end. You're like, I see. And it was really great. I really enjoyed it. I haven't gone and read it a second time, but it is something that I would really love to revisit. So yeah, this is definitely one of my top 10. Next up is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This is a beautiful copy. This is the Owl Crate Special Edition, and it doesn't have a dust jacket, but it is signed by the author, and it is lovely. I really liked this book. I liked Addie. I liked the whole situation that she was in. Not liked. It was absolutely enthralling. I loved all of the themes that it addressed of trying to make your mark in this world when honestly sometimes you feel so small in this world. Like, I live out in the, like I said, in the middle of nowhere. We have a really small population where I live. And if I go to like Toronto to a concert or something, it's like, wow, there are so many people in this world. And it makes you feel so small and so little. And the idea of making your mark somehow and making it so that when all of this is over and done, someone will remember you is just such an interesting theme. The end is kind of tragic and like getting small goosebumps talking about it. And she doesn't get exactly what she wants, but the thing I really love, I really hope this remains a standalone, because the thing I really love about it is like I can finish the story in my own mind of what I want to have happened, and it makes me happy. There's so much left for us to fill in puzzle pieces at the end, and that's one thing I really liked about it. It was just so magical and mysterious and good character development. And I know that this isn't everybody's piece of cake because it is slow, but I really enjoyed this one. Top 10. Now, my next one is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I know that She Who Must Not Be Named is canceled. I understand that. This was the first book that I read of Harry Potter. I accidentally read them out of series, and it completely engaged me, and it really fed into my love of reading, because as I was reading these books, I was the same age as the characters. I'm 32 now, so this was one of the first series that I got into and was like, wow, I didn't know reading could be like this. And Harry Potter really does hold a special place in my heart. As an adult, I have reread it, and I see that there's a lot of problematic things about it. I see that there's a lot of problems, not just with the author, but with the books themselves. There's some things in the books that just didn't age well. But I put this in my top 10, not because of so much the book itself, but of what it represented in my journey of reading and literacy. I think this one is really important and special to me. Next on my list Next on my list is A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is a Bookish Boss special edition. Let's just take a second to really appreciate the artistry of this book. Like, come on, it's really good. So the reason I choose this book out of any other book in this series is because we're taking a woman who is a plus size woman. She is not the typical, like, stereotypical protagonist who is really, she has no power. She's been stripped of everything. Her family, her background, like everything that people use to understand their own identity, hers has been stripped away from her. She knows nothing about herself. And in this book, she is starting to break that apart and learn who she is as a woman and as a person. And she's choosing things for herself, where Castile comes in. Like, the romance and the smut's good, but the thing I like the most about it is that she's choosing it for herself. And it's just a really powerful, like, almost feminist anthem. And I love that about her character development, which was, like, in the third book, it was a little bit more disappointing because it was just so slow, and I just felt like the characters didn't feel the same. And I'm really hoping with The War of Two Queens coming out this year that Poppy kind of like refines herself and the books refine themselves, because the last book was terribly slow. I read it once and listened to on audiobook a second time, and both were slow. So I'm really hoping that the fourth one comes out closer to this one, because this one was phenomenal. I finished it so quickly. I really loved the characters. I loved Poppy. And I'm going to talk myself in circles, but this was great. So, top 10. Next on my top 10 list is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I loved this book. I've read it twice. I loved it. The first time I read it, I was really confused. The first few chapters, I was like, what is happening? I have no idea what I'm into here. But once I figured it out, I really loved the mystery. I loved Alex Stern, that she wasn't perfect, that she's just like learning about herself and finding herself and getting power. And she starts out the book like covering up parts of herself, like making sure her tattoos are hidden. And at the end of the book, they come back and she's like, unapologetically, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And she is in an institution for higher learning. And she is a person that would never have got that opportunity. And she's here and she's pushing herself in so many ways. And she's proving to be a bit of a powerhouse in solving this or working on this mystery that nobody else, one, cares to work on, or two, even knows where to start with it. I love her character. I love the grittiness of the scenes that are set for us that we get to adventure through. There's nothing about this book I didn't like, and I keep hounding Leigh Bardugo's website being like, I need a tidbit for what's next. I want to know what's next. I want to know what comes next, and I'm just gonna have to be patient, which I'm not very good at. But this one, definitely top 10 material. Loved it so much. Next is Gleam by Raven Kennedy. I cannot explain to you how excited I am for the fourth installment in this series to come out. I also ordered the Bookish Box editions of this one, and they're supposed to be coming out, I believe, next month. So I'm super excited about it. I know Raven just made some special edition hardcovers of her book. Unfortunately, in Canada, they're close to $50 a book, and I just can't afford it. So I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to buy the Bookish Box editions, because that was a special treat to myself. And at least I'll have some hardback editions for it. These books, oh my gosh, I know the first one in this series isn't the best one. But again, it's like a woman finding her power and like discovering that she has all of this strength within her. And this book was difficult to read because of the power struggle between her and her captor and her abuser. But the relationship she's found in Rip and the way that she is able to discover herself with some solid guidance and just the smut and the romance, it's really, 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 really good. Like, this is top 3 series. I would say this, ACOTAR and Zodiac Academy, top 3, really closely followed by Throne of Glass. I know this is a really unpopular opinion, but I'm gonna go with A Court of Silver Flames as one of my top 10. And the reason I have chosen this one, I have another one on ACOTAR in my top 10. We'll talk about that after. But the reason that I show this one first is because of Nesta. I know a lot of people really don't like Nesta. I know that she is not everyone's cup of tea. But I see so much of my own struggle that is reflected in Nesta's struggle. I like I've said in previous videos, I've struggled a lot with anxiety and depression, and I'm really lucky that I've had a close support system in the family that I have, and our collective experience as a family too, because they understand what it's like when you're not in a good place, when you are literally unable to get up, you know, and when you need help. Nesta is that. Like, I see her struggle and I see the effort that's gone into helping her get better. And I remember what that felt like. I remember reading this book and seeing Cassian come and get her, and the whole crew of people being like, you have one of two options. One option, you live up in the house and you train, or you're cut off completely and you go back to the mortal world. That's how low she got. That's the trauma in her life has caused her to get to a place where she's just hurting everybody around her. And this is a real reality for a lot of people. And I see all over social media, especially on TikTok, the girls who get it, and the girls who don't. And I really think there might be some truth to that, because I don't know if you haven't struggled with mental health struggles yourself, I don't know if you would really understand Nesta. Like, I can understand why you wouldn't like her at all. People have in my life not liked me at all because I wasn't nice. I was not a nice person, you know? So I love her journey in finding love, in finding friendship, and most of all in finding her voice and finding herself and making amends for all the shitty things that she's done, because she did a lot of shitty things. And I don't think this redemption arc was even thought of in the first couple of books for Nesta. I think that this series just took on a whole new life, you know, especially since the uptake of social media and of people connecting over books the way that they do now. So I like that she has had the opportunity to grow through this book. And there are some pretty terrible things that she's done in the past books where, thinking about it, I'm like, that's pretty bad. But I like that she had a second shot, and I like that she's just not written off as like a one-dimensional character, because people in general, and I guess in this case Fae, they're not inherently bad. Sometimes they just need a really strong hard kick. And with that, I know that's super deep. That's why this one's in my top 10. And in going with the theme of ACOTAR, A Court of Mist and Fury, how can I not put this one on here? Sarah J. Maas kicked the shit out of me in this book in such a good way. Again, we see a theme going on here, right? Like, I loved Feyre's adventure, her journey to self-discovery and understanding that she's been through some shit and that she doesn't need to deal with it anymore. That she is the most powerful female Fae that I think Prithian had ever seen. And she starts owning up to it in this book, and she's healing her trauma in this book, and she finds love in this book, and chapter 55 is in this book. Like, it's a little cringe, like, who would bang with all that paint surrounding them? But like, they did it and it worked. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's a Fae thing. But I really, really loved the characters in this. It was by far the shining star in the first 3 books. I'm gonna think about ACOTAR as a trilogy and then the rest of it. So in the trilogy, this is the shining star. This is the best of all 3, hands down. Loved the series, but this one is where all the magic happens, and it's the heart of the entire series. Next is the Zodiac Academy. Now, this book in particular might not have been my favorite in the series, but I cannot differentiate from book to book, because to me it's all one long book. And I know that doesn't really make sense, but it makes sense to me. This is the best series of all time. It's so good. I love it so much. I will stand up on the top of a mountain and scream with this book over my head because I did not expect it to be this good. Usually from authors you can only find on Amazon, I'm like, it's going to be a smutty adventure and I don't expect much else from it. And that's kind of the point. Like some of those books, that's the reason you get them, is because you just want some mindless, like, feel good. But this isn't that. Wow, this is a bully romance, and I hated the boys at first. I was like, how can anyone be so cruel, so awful? But as you get to know them, they're so much more complicated than what you would think. And same with the girls, Darcy and Tori Vega, so much more complicated than you would have thought. They have so much going on, and I love the relationships that they form, the friendships that they make. Geraldine and her buttery bagels, like, it's the stupidest shit I've ever heard, but I love it so much. It kind of hurts my heart a little bit. I can't wait to read this series over and over and over again and pick apart pieces that I didn't see the first time. This is really cool. I love it so much. And because I love it so much, I can't wait to get into more of the books that this duo has written together. Carolyn Peckham and Suzanne Valenti, they also did a version of like a series, I think, on other fae that you can see in this series, but it's like, I think it's called Ruthless Fae, but it's a little different. And they have a whole bunch that they've written together. They are so good together. However they met, I think the stars that they aligned perfectly for that meeting to happen, because this means so much to so many people. I don't think they really realize what they've done, like how happy they've made people. So kudos to them. I love it. I can't wait to finish this series. But like I said in my 22 books to read in 2022, I'm going to take my time finishing the series because it's not complete yet. And I don't want my heart broken and to be sitting on my couch crying hysterically because I can't read the next part. So I'm going to really take my time getting through it and really enjoy the final books that I haven't read, book 6, book 7, and then the boys version. I'm going to take my time reading those because I love them. I love them and I don't want them to end too soon. Last but not least on my list is City of the Lost by Kelly Armstrong. Now, Kelly Armstrong is a staple author for me. She's local, close to where I live. She lives in Ontario too. I have met her in London. I went to a release of one of her books in this series actually. And I got to ask her a couple questions. It was really cool. It was the first time I've ever met an author in real life. And I love her work. She's just really, really good. She knows what she's doing. But this series in particular, I really like. It is kind of like a thriller mystery series. There's a handful of books. I don't even know off the top of my head. There might be 5 books. There's a new one coming out this year that I'm really excited about. But they follow Casey Duncan, who is a detective, and she goes up north. I think it's Yukon. I always say Alaska, but I want to make sure that I get it right. Way up north, and she's escaping. So there's this city that she's escaping to where people who are in trouble, they go to this city to be lost so that nobody can find them. Nobody knows where to get a hold of them. They spend so many years there as per whatever their contract is, and then they try to assimilate back into society, whether it is as their original person or if they go and hide somewhere else. And this has got me gripped like no other because I'm a fantasy reader. I don't typically read this style of books unless Kelly Armstrong wrote it. And if Kelly Armstrong wrote it, I know I'm going to enjoy it. There's only one, and I need to restart. There's only one book in this series that I am not the biggest fan of, but it's still good. It's still a really good addition that like leads you through the path. I have no idea how many books are going to end up being in the series, and I keep getting surprised that at the end of the book that is currently out, I'm like, ah, there's more. It's thrilling. So yeah, really, really, if you're into thrillers and mystery, Kelly Armstrong is really great. You should definitely check her out. And on that note, guys, that is all I have for you. Those are my top 10 books that I'm feeling are really important to me in this moment. If you give me like 3 hours, I might decide there's a different one that's more important. But for now, those ones are really, really important to me. So If you liked this video, like and subscribe down below, and let me know if any of these books speak to you too. Let's start a conversation about them. I would love to talk about maybe some of my favorite books that weren't some of yours, or maybe you hated them. Tell me why. I'd love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video. Have a lovely day, night, whatever it is where you are. Bye!